I'd like to talk about intervening with partners. And partners are really anybody that could be interacting with a person who uses augmentative and alternative communication. But sometimes we use the word facilitator to talk about the individuals that are taking maybe a little bit more of an active role as a partner to help make interactions better. Now, in an ideal world, everyone's a facilitator. We're all helping each other, we're working together to co-construct utterances. But in the world of augmentative and alternative communication service delivery, there are certain people that we might think about more as facilitators, and there are other people that we might think of more as peers or unfamiliar partners. So I'm going to start by taking that subsection of partners and look at facilitators, the individuals who are in a person's life who are going to be helping communication to happen more. And in some cases, they may be paraprofessionals who are with somebody in a school system for a lot of their day. In other cases, it might be a personal care attendant. It could be a caregiver. There are lots of people who could be facilitators. And the thing about a facilitator is when they are doing things that are paced really well and are helping this person, communication overall can be improved. However, when they're doing things that maybe are disrupting the flow of conversation, there are ways that we can give some tips and help enhance an interaction. The way you do that, though, has to be very sensitively done, because if you come in and start telling people, hey, I think you should do this or that, and if it's somebody who already spends a lot of time with an individual who uses AAC, they may not hear the important parts of your message if you come across as just telling them what to do, right? So it's important to be sensitive, and I wanted to give you some tools to help structure the ways that you talk about working with partners. And I'm going to start by showing you a really good partner, somebody who's quite good at interacting with a child. And so I have a video here of the first time a therapist at the AAC Institute is going to be working with a little boy with cerebral palsy. And I'm going to show you the clip just a little bit at first, and then we'll talk about it more.
Good turn.
You did so good. You want to sit in this chair, Nikki?
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
Yes, you said yes.
It did yes.
Yay, you said yes back at me. Are you trying to say eat again?
Eat?
You did it. Yes. I don't know any boys who do any better smiling and giving joy and attention like that.
All right. Now, I think you can watch this person and say, wow, I think he's really got a good sense of this person, or I like the way he interacts. But how are we going to structure that? What kinds of behaviors specifically are we going to look for? And that's where this facilitator coding sheet comes in. And so I have this called up on my computer here, and you can easily use the PDF, and I can deal with the markup pieces of it. But the things that you're really going to focus on are what actions are going to be considered facilitative and what ones are going to be ones that maybe could use a little improvement. And it actually, so when you go through this sheet, you're either going to write a plus or a minus, but sometimes you might write both, because you might find there are some things that are done pretty well, but there are other things that could maybe be improved on. So when I think about this person right now, I can look through these 10 different interactions or 10 different behaviors, and we have a naturally occurring context here, and I want to try to find out, what is it this person's doing really well. And if you look back at the clip, there was a time where this little boy who's not used this device before needed to press the button on the system. And the thing is, when he does it, what you find is, you can see it here, he's using all of his fingers. And what I noticed here is one thing that happens is, if you check it out right here, the therapist is helping him to just use that single finger so he can be much more successful. And I'm going to call that a prompt, right? And I'm going to say that he did that quite well in isolating that finger. And I will probably type this instead of drawing it out like that, because that's going to get really tedious. So let's just add a little text box here. And I'll say isolated finger in a friendly and helpful way. Friendly, not fiendly. Friendly way. And maybe that's where I want to start. I want to say, hey, I would really like to highlight that for that particular facilitator. And when I go down, I might say, well, what else is involved in prompts? Maybe I'll go and look down at this. And prompts, it says, like, signals the client by appropriate verbal or nonverbal means, and touch or gestural cue, to take a turn when the client's missed an opportunity to do so. And so in this case, we had a prompt, though, that was looking at how do you do something, an operational skill, and there was something we wanted to get at. And I would argue that it's going to be very frustrating for this little boy to keep getting mishits all the time if he uses all his fingers. And so it was a great idea to jump right in and say, hey, let me help show you a great way that you can interact with this system. So that's one of the ways that I might use prompts. And when we go through this, we'll say, I'm going to look at structures in the environment, or where is the environment set up in a way that facilitates communication? Does the person follow their lead? Meaning, am I directing this person to do just the things I want them to do, or am I responsive to the things they're saying and doing? A lot of times it's a mix, and it still doesn't have to be completely open-ended. I mean, if we go back to this therapist, obviously he's brought in a few things. He's got some Cheerios right there, and he's done that, but he's not going to be so locked into using them, as you see, that it's all about what he as the therapist wants to do. Do they solicit a shared focus? And this one is when you have a third kind of focus of the interaction. Remember, when you're working in AAC, you've got you as a communication partner, you get the person who uses AAC, and the AAC system then ends up being another focus of interaction. But what can happen is you can lose your client in the system, and you lose some really nice attention with them. Now, this therapist is quite excellent, and so he notices right away what great joint attention there is. And it's even labeled here in a quite excellent way. Look how fantastic it is, really summed up here, where now we've got this shared focus between the two of them, and I'm very confident that this person is really sharing with this individual. So I have no doubt in my mind that soliciting shared focus is a real positive for this person. So I will mark that as a plus, and I may go in and again make my quick note to say, move my text box up here, and I'm gonna say that worked at the child's level and responded by matching his gaze when the client looked at him. And I thought this was quite a strength of this. And so I'm going to include that in solicits a shared focus. So let's continue on here with this video a little bit, and I'll give a few more pointers on how you might use this sheet.
Eat.
Yes. You get to eat when you say that, and then you look at me and smile. Someone's working so hard.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No. Look at my head. Watch my head. Say, can you watch me say that? I said, yes. When you tell me to shut my head, we'll do it. I'm sorry, I've got you kind of interrupted.
Yes, no. Yes, no. Yes, no. Yes, no.
Did you see?
Yes, no. Yes, no.
Yes,
Yes, no.
no. Yes, no.
Yes, no.
He's like this guy.
All right, so let's take another consideration here of what we've got. I'm going to move this slightly to the side so we can see both a little bit. So in this one, I talked before about following the client's lead. Now, yes, no is not always something that you want kids to be saying all the time, but this therapist is so excellent that he makes that a fun sort of encouragement. And he also solicited that shared focus again. Did you see how he kind of encouraged, he didn't want to lose this kid in the system, and so he got him back here for that shared focus, and he does it in such a sensitive way. This could go so wrong when you grab kids or try to move them around, but he has such a great sense of what's going to be okay and what's not going to be okay with this person, that he knows, I think I can get his attention back, and he does that. And then he really does a nice job of keeping things fun again, lets this kid take his turn, and then responds to whatever happens. So then we get this fun little yes-no interaction that they have together. So he follows the client's lead, and so I'll even make a note that he turned yes-no into a fun game to encourage use of the AAC system. And so I've got that here, and this was a great thing. So put that right there in the Facilitator coding sheet. All right, let's continue watching.
Yes, no. Yes, no.
Yes,
Yes, no.
no. Yes, no.
Yes, no.
He's like this guy.
There's such great turn taking here that I'm thrilled with, that kind of plays into a couple of different things. So I want to be sure that I'm clarifying and marking these in just the right spot, because there's a number of things that went on there. So I'm going to look at number 6 and 7 right now, attends to the client, and then paces the interaction. So in attends to the client, he makes the client the focus of his or her attention once interaction is initiated, and ignores environmental distractions until the interaction is appropriately concluded. So this one is going to be really important in those kind of distractible situations. Now, I think this therapist does a nice job where other people are commenting off camera, but he really keeps his focus on this little boy. And occasionally he may make a remark to other people, but he never deviates from his focus on this person. So I'm going to give him a plus for attends to client, but where that comes in is so important is that even when other people are talking, he keeps his focus on the client, so he doesn't get distracted by other things that are going on. And I can tell you, even as a parent, sometimes that's really difficult. Other things come up, you're distracted, whatever. Keeping that focus on the client, really important. So that's number 6. Let's take a look at number 7, paces the interaction. Interacts at a pace which allows the client sufficient time to initiate and participate in the interaction. There's such a great back and forth between the two of them here. that you'd think they knew each other for years. And again, this guy has such a great sense. But let's consider the
Yes, sir.
pace of this.
He's like, this guy, I've got this guy.
And he waits.
Yes, sir.
And he reminds him to point again.
Yes.
Oh, and now what else do we have here? He brings him back into it. Kind of gives him that prompt again. And so remember 10 was that prompt. And so we might even want to say brings him back to the system with a general prompt, right? Where he kind of does this, right? Okay. So now I'm getting some more things on prompts. I still like his pace of the interaction, and I thought they had some really nice turn exchanges as well, and I'm going to make a note of that. Exchanged turns, waited, responded, and waited again. And so they had a nice exchange of turns here, and for a 2-year-old, they really had quite a few turns going back and forth, which is pretty exciting to see. Let's continue on a little more.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
Yes, more. Join attention.
Yes, Lord. No. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
Oh, no, I'm so tired. What's this? Yeah, just. Where's Finger? Oh, I saw Finger.
Drink.
Very good, you guys. You know what? I'm proud of you.
He's encouraging.
Drink. Drink.
Yes. Drink. Drink. Drink.
All right, now I'm going to come back to this reinforcing all forms in a moment here. But I did want to say one other thing. The structures of the environment are quite nice because we've got just what he needs, and he's down on this child's level as well. So structures of the environment positions the client to facilitate communication, makes use of activities appropriate to his interest, age, and skill level. We're starting to get into finally some toys here. Food and drink is okay, but there's more to life than cookies, as Janice Light and has said before in a chapter on communicative competence. So we want to get beyond that, and he's going to do that. So some of the structures in the environment that are so great are things like, let's get this back up there. He works at the child's level, brings in objects without too much clutter, positioning seems comfortable for the child. So these are all really positive things here. I'm going to move this over. And there we go. Now we're going to look at this next piece here.
Yeah.
Go.
Blah.
More.
Blah.
More.
Another fantastic exchange here, and I want to point this out as a way of expecting appropriate communication and interaction which is appropriate for the client, and I think this is really quite good, but we've got models for the client's expressive modes of communication. And notice he was not just focused on using the AAC system. So demonstrates and uses modes of communication which the client could use expressively to participate in communicative interaction, and he accepts them all. The thing you really want to avoid here is you don't want to just be prompting kids to use the system. He just told you more. You don't need to have him saying, well, now tell me on this device. That's not what you need to do. If he doesn't need to use the device to say more, then he doesn't need to use it there. There's plenty of other chances for communication, and he got his point across there. So if you're relying on a single instance to teach a single word, then you're trapping yourself, and that's not what communication is about. When someone sends me a text message, I don't say, hey, thanks for that message. Now call me and tell me again. I got the message. That's fine. They didn't have to use their natural speech to tell me to do that, right? So in this case, I think it's quite good that we have multiple modes encouraged and reinforced. Speech, AAC, gestures. And he gives models back, which is quite good with this video. Okay. Now, let's take a moment to consider, is the language input appropriate? So in number 8, I've got provides appropriate language input. This is where you use language appropriate to their receptive skills, level, content, amount, and mode. This is really quite good for this little guy. He is fun, he's not condescending, he doesn't talk too much, and he uses short phrases, and I think he's really got a good sense of balancing his language. Oops. With child's receptive skills. Short phrases, 1 to 2 words, responsive style, right? Okay, so there we go with that. And now let's look at some of our remaining things here. More. So the opportunities that are provided for communication, that's in number 4, recognizes, sets up opportunities to take turns. Yeah, he does a nice job here. He brings in some toys that are really great. So I'm going to say brings in toys, withdraws a toy in a nice way to encourage asking for more. When he pulled it back a little bit, he did it in a nice way and not in a mean way. Everything's very positive with this guy, and he has such great pacing as he goes through, so really quite excellent. And then we're left with expects communication or interaction which is appropriate with the client. He doesn't know this person really well, but he has a great sense of what is going to be appropriate. Behaviors which are appropriate considering his or her physical abilities, cognitive status, communication skills. He expects communication from this little guy, and he seems to know you can do this, and he expects turns, so he knows it's not going to be all one-sided. He's also comfortable with silence in this, but look at these two and what a good time they're having. It's really quite excellent in what you see here, so I'm going to give him a plus for that, because he waits, takes turns, and expects communication. So this is really quite good. And when you fill out these sheets, it's good to try to get some specific examples as much as you can. I'm kind of doing some shorthand here, but I'm just showing you some ways you might be able to fill out this sheet. And what you do with this is, if we did have some minuses here, we try to note, okay, well, what are some areas that need improvement? And then I'd set some goals for this facilitator. And I'd say, hey, let's talk about this. And maybe even can look at some positive examples like we did here and say, hey, these are some things. Not in the way of, hey, I wish you could be more like this guy, but really in a way of saying, hey, this is what I'm talking about. Do you think that that's possible for you? Is this something that could happen? That's something that's good to think about. All right, so this is a way you could use the facilitator coding sheet. Now, this is the LAMP system. I just wanted to show you, as we branch out of facilitators, I wanted to talk a little bit about partners too. And I have a quick clip here that I wanted to put out there for you with a different system for a little bit ago. And we have a facilitator who's an adult in this clip, but we also have several communication partners. So let's watch this.
So things really started to take off when we started using the iPads to talk to the students, using Proloquo Go. They then understood how they could use it. We really started to see some big changes in their behaviour, their use of the iPads, and their understanding of how they can use it to be a communicator themselves.
We might start off. Alana, do you want to tell us? Have you got some news to tell us? Tell us something you did at home. And Andrew or Tyrone, do you think you could make a positive comment? Okay, positive. Yes. I know you too well. Maybe better if you sit down, Alana. Sit down and tell us something you did on the weekend.
Shopping centre. Beef. Shopping centre beef.
You saw Bev at the shopping centre. Fantastic.
At the beginning of the year, their communication was to the teachers and the aides in the classroom, but through the year they came to see each other as communication partners, and they started to tease each other and talk to each other. It was just really cool to see those peer relationships develop.
Fun. Did you have fun?
Did you have fun? Great question.
Mum. Hurt.
Oh, it wasn't fun because Mum got hurt. That's not good. Where did she get hurt?
Eye.
On her leg or her arm?
Sorry. Right foot.
Her right foot. Oh, poor Mum.
Oh,
Ouch.
she's sad about that.
I think Tyrone's got something else to say to you, Alana.
I feel sorry, Mum.
I feel sorry for Alana's mum. That's lovely, Tyrone. Yes, we all feel sorry for your mum, Alana.
So this is a great clip because in this sense we've got our facilitator here and she's pacing the interaction, and we can look through our things and say, well, is she structuring the environment? Absolutely she is. Look at this. She has got this set up pretty well. It'd be nice if they were maybe a little more face-to-face, but that's okay. That might be something I could suggest. Maybe you could try that out, and they might be doing this just for the camera here. Are they following lead? Absolutely. We can go down this list, but what we find out is not only is the facilitator doing a nice job, but she's helping turn these partners into facilitators as well, helping them to support each other, helping to foster relationships between them, setting up good conversation skills. Now, we still need to find out, hey, we got someone who isn't as involved over here. Are we going to get him involved in the
She's better
conversation?
soon. Now maybe Andrew's got something to tell us.
And she does.
Birthday party. Birthday party, Sammy.
You're right. We are having a birthday party for Sam E today. It's Sam E's birthday. That was great.
What we need to be doing too is allowing students to control what they're saying. I worked with a student years ago who just used to use his systems to say McDonald's. And people would say, oh, we can't go to McDonald's today. We never knew what the McDonald's was about. But if we teach him the beginning phrases, I like McDonald's, I went McDonald's, I go McDonald's, we've got a much more concrete idea of what each statement is about.
Party. I am going to Sammy birthday party.
Great, because there's going to be cake. Okay. And
All right. So we go from facilitators and we go to partners and friendships and interactions, because interactions are what it's all about. And that's what we want to foster here. And if we do this well and we're true facilitators, we've now made something really great happen.